Good morning. We have 31 members of the public register to speak today. The first 30 minutes of public comment will be delivered at the board meeting, and the remainder will be posted online for the public and board members on April 22nd. I would like to remind our public speakers that, in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Thank you for your patience and understanding throughout the virtual public comment session. The next speaker is Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
The coronavirus pandemic has created one of the most difficult and darkest times in the history of our great city, state, and country. And yet, even during these times, there are people who work to sustain hope, create access, and provide relief to those who need them on the job. That certainly describes our dedicated MTA employees who ensure that our mass transit system keeps running despite this pandemic. They are getting our healthcare workers, first responders, and other essential workers to and from front lines and back home safely. And sadly, while performing this essential service for New Yorkers, over 50 transit workers have lost their lives from COVID-19. To the families, friends, co-workers, loved ones of all these incredible people, I offer my deepest condolences. Even today, we can't forget that there are 2,000 other MTA employees who have tested positive for the coronavirus, and still more in quarantine. That's why every MTA employee must have the protective gear they need to stay safe during this crisis. While these essential workers are on the job for us, we all have a responsibility to fight against this virus. And that's why I urge everyone using mass transit to practice social distancing. And of course, please, if you don't need to travel, stay home. It's absolutely essential. It will save the lives of New Yorkers and, of course, our MTA workers. Thank you again.
The next speaker is Speaker Carl Heastie.
Hi, I'm Carl Heastie, Speaker of the New York State Assembly. Thank you to all the MTA workers on the front lines who are continuing to keep our system moving in these difficult times. You put yourselves at risk day after day for the benefit of our communities. There are so many essential workers that rely on public transportation to get to and from their jobs every day, and the workers of the MTA make this possible. You are vital to ensuring we can keep these systems functioning and move essential workers throughout the city during this crisis. Now, more than ever, it is important to minimize unnecessary trips on our public transportation for the safety of everyone. I encourage anyone who can stay home and avoid using public transportation to please stay home. Staying home helps keep us all safe. As we navigate through this unprecedented situation, it is crucial that we work together, continue to support one another, and do our part so that we can stay safe and healthy. Once again, thank you to the hardworking men and women of the MTA. You keep us moving and are essential to our communities.
The next speaker is Senator Leroy Comrie.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to reach out. I know that we're going through difficult times. I really just wanted to thank all of the workers, the MTA workers and employees that are out here providing essential services every day. We cannot thank you enough, and we're asking the public not to overburden you by creating more problems and not observing social distancing rules. It's important that people that have to go to work be able to go to work in a safe environment and follow social distancing, do the things necessary to ensure that that we do not spread this disease or re-spread this disease. Fortunately, the numbers are going down, but we must stay vigilant. But it's only through the work of the MTA workers, many of whom are residing throughout the city, and we've had over 50 deaths so far of MTA personnel who have been courageous in trying to provide our service, in trying to provide service to our community. So I cannot thank you enough. As chair of the New York State Senate Corporations, Authorities, and Commissions Committee, I have oversight of the MTA, and I know that the MTA is facing some major budgetary issues. I stand ready to work with you together to ask for more federal dollars to try to resolve these issues. And I hope that we take a hard look at what transit means in the future as well. I hope that we can do everything we can to ensure that whatever we need to do, we can be able to provide a robust transit system for the people that need it, and also be flexible enough to deal with whatever comes forward. But I mainly just wanted to thank the workers. Also wanted to thank the administration for taking the early steps to do a compensation package for those workers that have been lost to COVID-19. I think it's admirable, and it's a great first step as we try to work to address this. I just hope that we continue to protect those other folks that are still providing service every day by practicing safe social distancing. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Senator Tim Kennedy.
Hi, I'm New York State Senator Tim Kennedy. I'm the chairman of the Senate Transportation Committee. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the thousands of MTA employees who are working so hard each and every day, but especially now through this horrific pandemic. Their work is an inspiration to all of us and is nothing less than extraordinary and heroic. Their work is allowing the system to continue to function at a time where we need it the most, allowing for the essential workers to get to and from their places of employment, saving lives, and helping those that are suffering. It's also allowing the ridership to get the goods and services that they need to take care of themselves and their families and loved ones. Thank you for what you do every single day, but especially now. I also want to take this opportunity to honor the memory of the nearly 70 MTA employees who have lost their lives to COVID-19. Our hearts are with them. Our thoughts and prayers are with their grieving families. I want to thank the MTA leadership for working with the labor unions to provide for the $500,000 benefit for those grieving families. Thank you for that. I also want to call upon the federal government, the White House and Congress to step up. We need the federal government to provide relief for the MTA and other public transportation systems across this state and nation while they are providing an essential service to our communities. The federal government in the next relief package has to make the MTA whole, and we're calling on our partners in government to do just that. I want to once again thank the MTA employees for the work that you're doing every single day, especially through this very difficult time in our nation and world history. Thank you for what you're doing out there on the front lines. You epitomize what it means to be New York tough, and you are the strength and the backbone of New York. Thank you.
The next speaker is Assemblymember Amy Paulin.
Thank you. I have similar comments to the speakers that I've heard prior. I just wanted to also, as chair of the Assembly's Committee on Corporations and Commissions and Authorities, which oversees the MTA, I wanted to let you know that I've been closely following the impact of COVID-19 on our mass transit system. And I really wanted to take a moment this morning to thank the workers on the subways, buses, Metro North, LIRR. They're out there every day in the midst of this pandemic, making sure that healthcare workers and first responders can get to work. This dedication, however, has come at a great cost. I want to offer my heartfelt condolences to the friends and families of the 68 employees that we've lost. To the thousands of workers who are infected, I wish you a speedy recovery. I also want to let you know that I appreciate and understand the dire need for funding. No one knows better than I do and my colleagues in the legislature how hard we work to ensure that funding would be at a level that we need to make our transit system what it needs to be. So I am with you. I am working diligently alongside the board and the staff to ensure that Congress and the president lives up to our expectation to keep New York what it must be and make our transit workers safe and to make our transit workers work in the best transit system in the United States and the biggest. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Assemblymember Jeff Dinowitz.
I'm Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz, and I represent the Northwest Bronx. I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words to the MTA board, but I want to start by thanking everybody who's out there each and every day during this horrible time, whether it's people driving buses or the trains or working in the system, keeping it clean, keeping it disinfected, keeping it safe. While many of us are working from home, there are others who go out to work every single day, and I think it should be known that we all appreciate their efforts and will be forever grateful. But I also want to go on record as saying that it is so important for all of us to speak collectively to demand that the federal government step up and do what it needs to do to make sure the MTA, the largest mass transit system in the country, can continue to operate now and in the future. Billions and billions of dollars in revenue have been lost because of the virus, and 90% of the riders are not on the system right now. That's a huge loss in revenue, and it's not going to recover extremely soon. So we have to make sure that the federal government does what it should do, which is to provide funding for the MTA to make sure that our mass transit system can continue to be the #1 system in the country. Thank you.
The next speaker is Assemblymember Robert Carroll.
Good morning. I'm Assemblymember Robert Carroll, and I'm glad to be with all of you today. I wanted to make a comment and give my most heartfelt thanks to MTA employees throughout the region who have made it possible for frontline workers at hospitals, grocery stores, hardware stores, and all of those essential workers to be able to get to work safely and efficiently. I want to also give my condolences to the families of those MTA workers who passed away due to COVID-19. Finally, I would like to say to all the MTA board members that I look forward to working with you and my colleagues in the state legislature, in the federal government, the governor, the mayor, to make sure that we find the necessary funding to continue the 2020-2024 capital plan. This pandemic is tragic on so many fronts, but we will need to work together in the future to make sure that it doesn't undo all the great work that so many people have done in the last few years to make the MTA a much more reliable, efficient, and modern system. Again, my thanks to all the MTA workers, the bus drivers, the motormen, the conductors, and everyone else who's made it possible for essential workers to get to work safely and efficiently. Hopefully, we will be through this soon. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. The next speaker is Anthony Simon.
Good morning, board. My name is Anthony Simon. I'm the general chairman of the Smart Transportation Division on the Long Island Railroad. First, I'd like to thank Chairman Foy and President Ang, the agency leaders and the staff who have conveyed their deepest appreciation for the heroic efforts of our employees, which is well deserved. Chairman, it is good to know that you came out of your own positive test well and hope the best for you. I want to convey Smart's deepest sympathies to all the families of the transit workers and other MTA workers who have lost their lives to this vicious virus. The death benefit agreement reached for these families and for the future families is an absolute no-brainer. I am sure the board will support this initiative as well as recognize the continued heroic efforts of the MTA workers who are still out there risking their own personal safety each and every day. They do not get to work or conference from home, so they can never receive too much praise. On behalf of the Smart Long Island Railroad workers, we remain committed to seeing this pandemic through. We remain committed to assisting this agency, providing the essential service needed and vamping up as we prepare to recover from this unprecedented disease. We are heavily engaged with the appropriate congressional and national figures we will rely on to produce the significant funding this agency will need to survive this financial burden. We ask this board and everyone listening not to ever forget that our workforce has done and continues to do each and every day. Do not ever forget the sacrifices they are making as they too have families that need to be kept safe. If you think our workforce are heroes, which I have heard time and time again over the past month, and I absolutely agree, please remember them as heroes today, tomorrow, and into the future. They deserve a newfound respect moving forward, and this board can deliver it by future actions as we rebound from this pandemic. Let's remember, this pandemic is far from over. We will continue to do what we need to do to deliver. President Ang and Chairman Foy, communication is key. We have been communicating, and I appreciate the efforts you have made, and I will continue to communicate so that we can get through this pandemic. Thank you, Board. Thank you, Chairman Foy, and thank you, President Ang.
Next speaker is William DiCarlo.
Good morning, and thank you for asking me to speak about my experiences during this pandemic and how the MTA interacted with my union. I'm Bill DiCarlo, National Representative and Legislative Director for the Transportation Communications Union. The TCU represents many different crafts on several MTA agencies. First, I wish to express my condolences to all of the families of my fellow brothers and sisters of the MTA who had to endure the loss of their loved ones due to this pandemic. Chairman Foy, I also hope you recover completely and do so as fast as possible. I would be remiss in not mentioning the passing of Ray Kenny, who succumbed to the effects of this terrible virus. He started as a TCU member on Long Island Railroad and rose to acting president. After his retirement, he went over to New Jersey Transit to run the operation. Ray never forgot his union roots or the fact that it's the unions that really run the railroad. We all valued his insight and respect his ability to work with the unions to solve the hundreds of issues that arose over the years. We lost a giant. This brings me to why, when asked to speak about my experiences in dealing with the MTA during this pandemic, I agreed to do so. We all quickly realized that we had to think out of the box if we were going to protect our members and at the same time provide a level of service that is necessary to keep this city running. Both the MTA and the TCU knew it had to be done. We immediately worked together to create and sign all the necessary agreements to keep my members and your employees as safe as possible. Suffice to say, between all the properties, there were numerous agreements. If one good thing comes out of this terrible pandemic, it will be that it created an atmosphere of goodwill and a level of cooperation that we aren't used to see between union and management. The MTA had a desire to act quickly and make sure they did what they could do to minimize any conditions that would be harmful to our members while still performing the necessary work. It also has really brought to light the value of the union workforce that now, until now, wasn't truly recognized. There are a few things I hope for. One is a quick end to this pandemic through medical advances. Two, whoever is sick gets better, and a recognition that by the MTA that the unions are your partner, that you involve in your plans before they have been decided. This is especially important.
Please summarize your remarks.
I am.
Thank you.
This is especially important if you want your vision for transformation of the MTA to be successful. There is one thing you can count on. If you involve the unions, then that is an honest evaluation of your plans and possibly alternative ideas that have been supported by everyone. Thank you for your time and allowing me to speak, and please stay safe.
Our next speaker will be Carlos Cesura.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carlos Cesura, President and CEO of the New York Building Congress. First off, let me say thank you to the employees of the MTA for their tireless dedication and service to the people of New York. We appreciate it, and we will always remember this as we move forward. As you know, we are living in very, very difficult times, and it is the position of the New York Building that significant investment in our 21st century infrastructure is very critical as we prepare the country for the challenges ahead. Obviously, investing in infrastructure is a proven way to create good paying, great jobs, spurs economic growth, and historically, investment from the federal government in infrastructure has been a key to moving us forward, whether it was the New Deal or the industrial boom that followed World War II. The MTA, it is our opinion, has a track record of delivering critical infrastructure projects at a critical time. And this is the moment that the MTA must receive the resources, the tools to develop rapidly important projects and put our country back to work. There are billions of dollars worth of shovel-ready projects that need to be started, and it is our opinion that the federal government should fund the MTA as per the needs of the MTA, and that critical infrastructure projects of the MTA move forward immediately and continue during this time. Thank you.
The next speaker is Colin Wright.
Good morning, I'm Colin Wright with Transit Center. I also would like to acknowledge the devastating loss of 79 MTA employees over the past few weeks and commend transit workers for their incredible response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Transit Center and our allies recognize the urgent need for resources and equipment to enable the safe and reliable operation of MTA buses and subways, both during the COVID-19 disaster response and during the recovery. Our city, state, and national economies depend on a strong MTA. COVID-19 has decimated the MTA's finances, causing severe declines in fare, toll, and tax revenue, as well as increased operational costs. Transit Center estimates that over the next 12 months, the MTA will face an operating shortfall of $4.4 to $8 billion, even after funding from CARES Act is taken into account. Without emergency measures to fill this gap, the MTA cannot continue to provide travel for essential workers during the height of the pandemic, nor will the transit agency be able to return to health and power New York's recovery. We also commend the MTA for taking steps to shift service on buses and trains to lessen crowding, especially in the Bronx. However, we continue to hear reports from the field that current service provision is insufficient to allow for safe physical distancing on some lines, especially in the bus network. We urgently request that service continue to be redistributed to reduce crowding, especially on the bus network. Doing so will reduce risk for transit riders and bus operators, which is critically important for the Black and brown New Yorkers who are a disproportionate share of the city's essential workforce. Additionally, by releasing current route-by-route data on schedules and ridership, the agency will help riders make informed decisions about how to travel and help the public understand the rationale for redistributing service. Thank you again to the MTA workers heroically responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, who ensure that our city can survive these extraordinary times. Thank you.
The next speaker is Lisa Daglian.
Greetings. My name is Lisa Daglian. I'm the Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, TCAC. We hope that everyone is staying safe. We're glad to see that those of you who are ill are doing better. COVID-19 has been devastating to our region. More than 10,000 New Yorkers have lost their lives. That terrible toll includes more than 70 transit workers. We mourn their loss and extend our thanks and appreciation to the heroes who continue to make sure that people can get where they need to go. During the greatest health crisis of our time, the MTA has done its best to maintain its essential levels of service. It moves the New Yorkers who save lives and care for the sick, and all those who allow us to flatten the curve. Now the MTA is in dire need of life-saving support, the kind that only the federal government can provide. Last week, the authorities sent a letter to New York's congressional delegation making an argument for more than $3.9 billion in emergency funding to keep the vital system operational through this year. We support that request, would even ask for more. We don't know the length or depth of this pandemic or how it will further ravage the agency's already precarious financial situation. The loss of revenue, combined with additional expenses, has put a serious hurt on the MTA's budget. Basically, the MTA is going broke to help save New York. It is critical that it emerge from this crisis able to serve riders and help support the region's economy and recovery. It's not just service that's in jeopardy. The future of the capital program depends largely on ensuring that there is enough money to run the system without having to reach into capital resources. The emergency funds the agency requested are an investment in the future health of the region and the millions of riders who rely on the MTA, and in the transit system that will ultimately allow us to get back in business and back to normal. We hope Congress is listening. Thank you.
The next speaker is Rachel Foss.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Foss. I'm the Senior Research Analyst for reInvent Albany. We advocate for more transparent and accountable state government, including for authorities like the MTA. First, we would like to acknowledge and express our appreciation for the essential work being undertaken by MTA workers. We honor those transit workers who have lost their lives and offer our condolences to their families, friends, and colleagues. The COVID-19 emergency has been challenging in many ways. We thank the MTA for continuing to solicit virtual public comment to try to uphold the spirit of past public comment portions of the board meetings. Reinvent Albany and many other advocacy groups joined the MTA in your call for an additional $3.9 billion in emergency rescue funds from the federal government. This is necessary because the CARES Act passed in March by Congress badly shortchanged MTA passengers who represent 40% of national ridership, who received only 15% of the $25 billion made available for transit systems nationally. The MTA's needs are massive, and New York's transit system needs billions more in unrestricted emergency aid from Congress. A recent transit center analysis found the MTA's continuing shortfall may run to $8 billion, even considering the $3.8 billion from the CARES Act. The effect of the pandemic on the region's economy is unprecedented. COVID-19 has caused a dual public health and economic crisis that will ravage the MTA's finances for months to come through severely depressed ridership, large hits to its taxes, and unplanned cleaning and overtime costs. Recovery of the region is dependent on billions in federal aid coming to the MTA, as the city and state will not be able to save the MTA. The emergency measures passed in the state budget, such as borrowing $10 billion in operating funds, should be an absolute last resort, as this would negatively affect the MTA's bond rating, which saw yet another downgrade from Moody's last week. This in turn would hamper the region's economy, which is dependent on a fully functioning mass transit system like no other part of the country. This is why Reinvent Albany and our colleagues will do what we can to ensure Congress delivers billions of emergency aid for transit riders. We stand ready to work with the MTA towards this goal. Thank you.
The next speaker is Brian Frisch.
Thank you very much. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Brian Fritsch, and I'm the Manager of Advocacy Campaigns for Regional Plan Association. I want to start by expressing our sincerest gratitude to the MTA for continuing to operate during the current crisis and to convey our deepest condolences to the MTA families for those that have passed away. The bravery and fortitude of many MTA workers who need to continue to work to get our essential workers to work and back home every day is incredibly appreciated. Public transportation is the backbone of our region's economy and is more important than ever to fund our public transit systems and keep them running during this crisis so our frontline workers can get to their jobs. To stop the spread of COVID-19, we needed people to stay home and off the system. This led to drastic declines in transit ridership and a stark financial picture for the MTA. Without reliable public transit, New York's economy will not continue to function during this crisis and will take much longer to recover when it has passed. That's why RPA is currently engaged in rallying support around the greater NYC region to support the MTA's push for additional federal funds to support the MTA's operating expenses as soon as possible. The MTA leadership recently made a clear ask to our congressional leadership, and it is incumbent on Congress to act now. In the CARES Act, the MTA only received 15% of the funding, despite carrying 40% of the nation's public transit riders. We demand that this inequity is rectified soon. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
The next speaker is Andrew Pollack.
Hello, everyone. Once again, thank you for letting me talk to you all during this unfortunate circumstance. I am Andrew Pollack. I am the Public Advisor to Passengers United. 3 points I want to make. Number one, I want to extend my condolences to Lionel Hogan's family and friends, Queens Village Bus Depot, HTU 1056, and TWU Local 106 as they are grieving the loss of their colleague due to COVID-19. Second, federal funding. I'm very glad that Chairman Foy keeps bringing this up. It's very important that the MTA receives the $4 billion. In the past 72 hours, I've reached out to both Senators Gillibrand and Schumer, along with a couple members of Congress, including Speaker Pelosi, to get the $4 billion that is needed once we can get everybody back into the workforce. And the third point I want to make, I reached out to Governor Cuomo over the weekend. Obviously, we do need an economic task force to rebound the economy once we can get everything back on track. I suggested to the governor that 3 MTA board members should be considered for an economic task force. Larry Schwartz, Bob Varan, and Robert Mujica have knowledge in financial matters, especially when it comes to transportation. So if the governor is listening, he should take my request and hopefully write it down for the record. So with that, thank you all very much, and I will be back in May.
The next speakers are Mark Epstein, Burton Strauss, and Francena Amparo.
Hi, I'm Mark Epstein, Chair of the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council. This message is on behalf of the hundreds of thousands of regular riders using the Long Island Railroad. This is messages for the Long Island Railroad workers who, as daily riders, we consider our extended family. Please know how much we appreciate everything you do to keep the railroad and the region moving. Your continued efforts mean that people from all across Long Island can get where they need to go to serve our communities. We couldn't do our part to stay home if you didn't do what you do every day. The tragic death toll among transit workers is a sad reminder of the risks you take every day. We know that in this battle against the virus, you, the steadfast workers at the Long Island Railroad, have stood your post. And so at this point in time, please know that from our families to your families, we wish for you to be safe, be well, and again, thank you.
Hello, I am Burton Strauss, and I am Vice Chairman of the New York City Transit Riders Council. I am speaking today to say thank you to all of the transit workers out there, bus and subway operators, cleaners, maintainers, everyone who makes the city's transit system run. You are the heroes who move the New Yorkers, who save lives and care for the sick, and pharmacy and food service workers, all those who allow us to flatten the curve. When our city finally recovers from this horrible situation, it will be in large part because of you. Please accept our deepest sympathy on the loss of your friends and colleagues. They will not be forgotten. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Francena Amparo, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Metro North Railroad Commuter Council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak this afternoon. We would like to thank the men and women of Metro North for keeping the trains running so that the frontline essential workers, including transit workers, can get to where they need to go. With your help, we will get through this crisis and begin to recover. I also want to express my sincere sorrow for those lives who've been lost and for those who succumbed to the deadly virus. From the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of the riders everywhere, thank you for keeping the region moving. You're heroes moving heroes.
The next speaker is Felicia Park Rogers.
Hello to the MTA board and to Chair Pat Foy. My name is Felicia Park Rogers, and I am the Director of Regional Infrastructure Projects for the Tri-State Transportation Campaign. I would also like to extend my condolences, my deepest condolences, to the hardworking staff of the MTA, to those who have lost their lives due to COVID-19. This is an extremely tragic situation. On behalf of the Tri-State Transportation Campaign, I am also adding my voice in support of the urgency of the need for an additional nearly $4 billion from the federal government for the MTA for just the year 2020. At Tri-State, we recognize how important the entire MTA system is, not just for the city of New York, but for the Tri-State region and for the nation. As others have said, but it can't be said enough, essential workers are at the front line of this pandemic. If they can't get to work, the city's healthcare, food, safety, cleaning, public work systems, and more will be at the risk of collapse. The MTA must keep running. It is not an optional service. It is the backbone of our civil society. The MTA and the City of New York are facing a situation akin to a natural disaster, and we urge the federal government to respond in kind. New York City is responsible for nearly 10% of the nation's GDP. The journey to national recovery from COVID-19 will run through New York City and the entire region. We need the MTA to be functioning now and into the future for that journey to succeed. We will continue at Tri-State to advocate for these funds with our congressional leadership, and we urge any members of the public who are watching the hearings today to please send a letter to your congressperson and your senators. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is Jason Anthony.
Good afternoon. I'm Jason Anthony, Vice President of Passengers United. This month, I want to bring my sincere condolences to those transit workers who have perished due to the coronavirus, especially to Ray Kenny, who recently passed this past weekend. And I want to know why the MTA hasn't provided sufficient PPE and like masks, gloves to those transit workers who are moving New York City in this horrendous time. Because I saw a bus driver a few days ago on the B65 bus. He didn't have no mask on. So I want to know why we are seeing this, why the MTA hasn't provided the essential materials for bus drivers, subway conductors, and motormen. And let's see if we could get the necessary funding to keep up with our operations. So that's all for now.
The next speaker is Alita Dupree.
Good morning, MTA Board, Chair Pat Foy and members. Alita Dupree, record. Let the record reflect that my pronouns are she and her. I don't live in New York. I live in Las Vegas, but I grew up on this system, and I care about it. First of all, I'm thankful for all the people who work for MTA, and my condolences to the families of those who passed. I admit to you I'm at a loss of words. I think it is important for us to think about the long game. Besides being safe, I feel it's important to continue the work of the Omni fare payment system. I used it in September of 19. It's very helpful, and perhaps someday I'll share my story of my damaged reduced fare card. I advocate, as a person of disabilities, for full accessibility of the system. I can climb stairs, but many can't. And when I ride systems like BART in San Francisco, I don't think about accessibility. But it really hit home to me when I was in New York, and I had to climb stairs in some of these old stations. I am pleased that the acquisition of Grant's Terminal is now owned by the MTA, and we have full control of it and do with it as we need to do. It was a place that I first visited in 1980, where I realized there were things bigger than myself. And so it is very near and dear to me. So I look forward to future meetings. But I will say this, as I close, there is one word that I use to describe the system that is the MTA, and that word is legendary.
The next speaker is Omar Vera.
Greetings, MTA Board, and welcome to the April edition of your full board meeting. First things first, I know that we all still can't meet in person again yet. Well, can't meet in person yet due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But hopefully, with improving conditions and statistics from Albany, we can ultimately hold regular meetings again, either in May or right before the summer. Hope everyone here as well. Like last month, I salute all the transportation workers at the MTA and other agencies across the country, in this case, across the world, I should say, for being on the front lines and moving medical and essential personnel to where they need to go in order to help those in need, as well as to ultimately defeat this terrible pandemic that has impacted the entire world in negative ways. I also want to especially thank the amazing ladies in charge of transit, Sarah Feinberg, Sarah Meyer, and Sally Librera, for their compassion, generosity, and goodwill support for everyone in the tri-state area, transit employees and customers alike. The three amazing ladies, that's Sally and the Sarahs, are truly transit mother figures to us all, and thus are the three golden goddesses of transportation in the tri-state area. And I thank them for their excellent and compassionate work in these difficult times. So, and of course, I also thank everyone else here for their hard work in getting everyone back on track. We can defeat this terrible pandemic if we all keep maintaining social distancing for the time being until it's safe to be regular again. And together we will win. We will win, and we will be back at NTHQ and elsewhere soon enough. And with that said, I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you for hearing me out, and I shall pass over to the next person. Thank you.
The next speaker is Theo Allen.
Thank you, MTA board. I am so distraught that we have lost 79 MTA employees among the many thousands of people just in New York State. But while we can thank the MTA workers, the MTA board has not done a good job. It failed to comply with its pandemic plan from 2012, which required PPE, rear door boarding, and the MTA has failed to ensure that social distancing has occurred. For example, Chicago says you can only have 15 people on a 40-foot standard bus or 22 unarticulated. We only got the mask mandatory Friday at 8 p.m. We haven't actually seen the MTA release its important data or the MTA tell people that if you use a low-crowded station, which is very close to another one, you get to go to that so you don't have to clean every single station. Agencies such as in Washington have done that. We haven't seen the MTA say close entrances, but keep every entrance open so it has to clean more. And the subways. If you put your hand on a plastic pole, which can actually hold COVID for 2 weeks, according to some studies, that's dangerous. You can't have 100% load capacity on your subways because how are people supposed to be spread out 6 feet apart when we have community infections and community spreads? How can you do that rationally? The MTA board needs to double down, make sure that essential workers only are on the system, not the homeless.
Please summarize your comments.
And please continue focusing on social distancing. And thank you.
The next speaker is Miriam Fisher.
Okay, I want to start with a quote by ex-President Byford. Accessibility is a moral imperative. I'm urging the MTA to continue gains in accessibility for people with disabilities. A reminder of the need for elevators to reduce dangers to parents with strollers. Malaysia Goodson, preventable deaths don't need more admissions to an overwhelmed ER and hospitals. Not now, not ever. Urging Governor Cuomo to finalize appointment of Mayor de Blasio's nominees to the board, Victor Calise and Lorraine Cortez Vasquez, as advocates for the disabled and seniors, an extremely vulnerable population. Continue steps to implement congestion pricing with link to federal approval, a source of funds for fast forward and accessibility. And now we all see the streets, which are clearer, traffic down. Statistics already show more safety and cleaner air. Disagree with the proposed 350 new cops on the subway. Dire need for money for operational and capital improvements. Safety for staff, PPEs, masks need to be replaced regularly. The homeless situation is not going to be solved by cops, by providing safe havens for people who are homeless, not more cops in the subway. Again, quoting ex-President Byford, accessibility is a moral imperative. Thank you.
The next speaker is Stephanie Burgos Vera.
Hello there, thank you. So good morning, I'm Stephanie, and hello to the board and to the chairman. I'm the organizing manager at the Riders Alliance. And first of all, I really want to say just thank you to all of the bus and subway operators who are providing service to the million New Yorkers who are helping us fight this crisis. And so today I'm going to talk about just 2 points. So I want to talk about what the MTA can do in this moment to continue to provide riders and their employees with safe conditions, and also what the federal government can do. Everyone has a role to play. But first, I'm going to start with what the MTA can do. So just a few weeks ago, the comptroller released a report about who essential workers are. And in that report, we saw that 70% of essential workers are people of color, 53% of them are immigrants, and 30% of them are bus riders. And we know that all of these folks, the majority of these folks, are coming from low-income communities, and they're coming from the West and Central Bronx. They're coming from Central Queens, and they're coming from Central Brooklyn. And in this moment, we need to ensure that the MTA is redistributing the service to these communities that we know are taking transit, that we know are getting on the bus and are getting on the subway. In order for riders to practice social distancing on a bus and on a subway, we need to ensure that there is enough service. This also helps keep riders safe, but also help keep the MTA employees safe. And so in this moment, what we need is that the MTA is redistributing service to these low-income communities, these communities of color. And the other thing that the MTA should be doing is rethinking their decision to add more cops into our subway system. Throwing cops will not address the homelessness issue. Throwing cops into our subway will continue to arrest and throw Black and brown people into jails. And so that's what the MTA should be doing in this moment, and they don't need the federal government to make that decision. Now on to the federal government and what they can do to help the system. And so to wrap it up, we all know that the MTA released the money that they need. They need $3.9 billion, and the Riders Alliance fully supports that the MTA gets what they need, because it would allow the essential workers to continue having service, and it will make sure that when we come back after this crisis, that the 6 to 8 million New Yorkers will have access to reliable and frequent service, and ensure that we don't see service cuts. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Christopher Grice.
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christopher D. Grice, member of the New York City Transit Riders Council, as well as the ACT and Long Island Railroad ADA Task Force. First of all, my condolences to a train operator who passed away on the 2 line, who actually lives not far from me. My condolences to the family and to the MTA. As you know, 110th Street was a really damaged area, got damaged, as well as the station. And this is another reason we need to work together to deal with these issues, that safety is a matter, and we need to all work together, not fighting each other on issues saying, oh, it's this fault, that fault, this fault, that fault. No, we need to work together, folks, and that's the main thing. The other concern, I'm not concerned, but I actually want to thank the Long Island Railroad, ADA, as well as Long Island Railroad, because there were some increasement ridership along the Brooklyn branches, Atlantic branches. We want to thank you very much with the Long Island Railroad and listening as well as MTA buses are getting much better as well as New York City. At least now we all are working on a lot of advocating and working together, not fighting each other. And this is the time we need to work together as a peaceful, loving time right now, and we need to encourage this. And it would be nice if our press people will please get the right information and not scaring people saying MTA is going to shut down. No, this is not the time to think of that, or whatever elected official says this. We need to work together and think of making sure our first responders are getting to where they have to go as soon as possible to where they have to go. And this means we have to reduce train service and bus service right now. I can understand that. It is a better move than hearing the word CUT, cut of service. I urge this, and I want to thank the MTA. I want to thank all MTA presidents as well as the chair. Thank you, everyone, for this time.
The next speaker is Deborah Grice.
My name is Deborah Grice. I am the chairperson for the Brooklyn Family Support Service Advisory Council and the state rep for from Brooklyn to statewide. And I'm very glad that the MTA has changed a few policies. I thank the former president, Andy Byford, the current chair, and who's also worked on it, and the ADA accessible. We have children who have cerebral palsy, and their mothers are also have disability too, who are in specialized strollers. And I appreciate the drivers have stopped harassing them and tell them they have to fold it. I appreciate they at least look at the child, and when you see, it's very easy to tell a child with the cerebral palsy. Most of the time they have their indifference almost like your fetal position. And if they can't walk, and it's very painful to be in a regular wheelchair. That is why they also we finally gotten specialized stroller chairs for children who are over the age of 5 and 6. So I appreciate that you put that in, and the bus drivers have been more understanding and appreciative, because you see, I'm also disabled, and I would have loved, when my son was a baby, to have been able not to have to fold a stroller. Now it takes into account that the parent as well as the child will have a disability. So I want to thank you, and I also want to thank you for telling the buses that they have to let people with disabilities or who are of short stature and seniors to go on through the front. The way the current bus is in the back, it is very hard to get off. It is too high. It's more than a foot, at 3-4 feet at least. It's very, very high. So I thank you for changing that policy. So, and also my condolences to all of the workers you lost, and hope everyone stays well. And we also I did know the driver from the 2 Trim. My condolences to him and his family, as well as the MTA family. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Jessica De La Rosa.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Jessica De La Rosa, and I'm from the Brooklyn Center of the Independence of the Disabled, and I'm testifying on behalf of ours, the Accessoride Reform Group. We appreciate the chance to testify remotely, an accommodation that you should consider making permanent, since many people can't easily travel to downtown Manhattan during work hours. We want to recognize the tremendous challenges that the MTA workers, Accessoride drivers, and other personnel, and all of you are facing during this crisis. And we want to thank you and all of them for keeping Accessoride going as a vital part of New York City's transportation system. Early on, you responded swiftly to the concern of riders and our group about shared rides, suspending them on March 18th. This made sense and was the right thing to do. Another sensible change that we hope will be permanent, you've allowed riders to take round trips to do short errands, such as going to the bank without waiting 90 minutes for another ride. Thank you. You also decided to hold off on the ill-considered changes to the on-demand pilot for the duration. That also made sense, and we again urge you to rethink your flawed plan for the second stage of on-demand. Finally, we appreciate the efforts drivers are making to keep Accessoride and other taxis clean. And just as expected from all state and city entities serving the public, we urge you to make sure the workers are supplied and wearing masks and gloves and have appropriate cleaning materials on hand at all times. This is an incredibly tough time for all of us New Yorkers, and many people in our community are especially affected. We appreciate your hard work and hope we are all here and can continue to work together to improve Accessoride when the crisis subsides. Thank you.
The next speaker is Finley Staub.
Alrighty. Hello to the MTA board committees. Hope you are staying well and healthy during this current pandemic that we're currently going through at the moment. I have 3 things to talk about this month. 1 of them is minor, and 2 of them are major and are of importance. Major, please enforce the must wear a face mask on buses and trains rule. The reason for this is because this is to prevent and stop others from getting sick. There are still people who aren't wearing masks and aren't social distancing on transportation. This problem needs to be taken care of. Minor, please keep the comments and live chat on future videos and live streams on your YouTube channel disabled. The reason for this is because the comments I see that are typed in the live chat of your live streams and the comment section on your videos are completely unnecessary. Major, please consider rename the Central Park North 110th Street station on the 2 and 3 lines to Central Park North, 110th Street, Garrett Gobble Way. The reason for this is to show and pay respect to the hero train operator who died in the event I dub as the catastrophe of Central Park North. It would be great that you show that you care about your employees by going through with this proposal of my own. Thank you for allowing me to speak this month, and I hope to speak again at next month's meeting.
Thank you. The next speaker is Danny Pearlstein.
Good morning, board members, chair. Thank you so much for having me at this difficult time. I want to make a pitch, as everybody here I'm sure has, for the $3.9 billion in federal aid that the MTA so badly needs. We know that this is crucial to maintain our essential service plan and to build back the MTA, the city, and in fact the nation, because the MTA is the bedrock of New York, the nation's financial and cultural capital. So I want to put in an urgent plea for that to all of our federal representatives, both here in New York and beyond around the country. We need that $3.9 billion. Next, I want to make a quick point about an area in which there are some essential savings that should be achieved, and that is on the new hires for the MTA police force. Last fall, we forcefully argued that it would be safer to run more frequent transit service than to add an expensive new police force, and we now know that that's absolutely certain, given the dangers of crowding in closely confined spaces. But more than that, I want to just, for the record, set some important things about what the state of the subway is, and in fact, the subway is a very safe place. And Andy Byford reminded us of that as he left, and everyone else has sort of said that. And the only folks who haven't are really, pushing hard in the direction against the facts, arguing that this uptake here or that number there somehow justifies an immense new expenditure on police that the system doesn't need and can't afford.